In a quiet neighborhood where the grass is trimmed to regulation and silence keeps the peace, one dog broke the rules just by being himself. When the HOA president tried to body shame a rescue beagle named Rufus, she didn't just start a petty feud. She ignited a movement. This is the story of how a man, a dog, and a neighborhood found their voice again. For most people in Cedar Hollow, life was neat, predictable. Lawns stayed trimmed to regulation height. Trash bins disappeared before sunrise the day after pickup. Holiday lights went up exactly 2 weeks before Christmas and came down 1 week after New Year's. Like clockwork, it was a place built on quiet order. But nothing about Mike Connors and his dog Rufus was quiet or particularly orderly. Mike was a 53-year-old retired Marine turned middle school science teacher. He didn't care about curb appeal. His truck was always dusty. His garden grew wild mint next to tomatoes, and something he claimed was lavender. But nobody could be sure. And then there was Rufus. Rufus was a beagle with a belly that swayed when he walked. A rescue. A little round, a little wheezy. But the sweetest soul in Cedar Hollow. He followed Mike everywhere. Whether it was morning jogs, waddles, or napping under the porch fan on warm afternoons, Mike often said, "That dog's the only living thing that kept me breathing through the worst." Nobody ever questioned Rufus's worth, not until Karen Laramie got involved. Karen had been president of the HOA for 3 years. Though it felt like longer, she spoke in clipped sentences, always carried a clipboard, and patrolled the neighborhood like a general inspecting her troops. Her yard was pristine. Her poodles had better haircuts than most humans, and she didn't like disruptions of any kind. The trouble began on a Tuesday morning. Mike was retrieving his mail when Karen approached. She didn't say good morning, just looked at Rufus, then at her clipboard. "That's a health violation," she said flatly. Mike blinked. "I'm sorry." "Your dog. His weight. He's disrupting the visual harmony of the neighborhood. He's setting a bad standard." Mike thought it was a joke, but Karen was dead serious. She handed him a formal notice. It cited a vague clause about public-facing appearances reflecting community wellness. She'd interpreted that to mean Rufus needed to lose weight or face consequences. Mike didn't yell, didn't curse, but his ears burned. He'd survived deployment, trauma, and the long crawl back to emotional stability. Rufus had been part of that journey. This wasn't about neighborhood wellness. It was humiliation dressed as policy. He walked back inside, folded the notice, and stared at it for a long time. The next day, chalk outlines of a beagle started appearing on the sidewalk outside Mike's house. Someone labeled them "Diet Starts Today" and "Visual Pollution." A photo of Rufus waddling happily behind Mike got posted to the HOA Facebook group. The caption read, "When your emotional support animal needs emotional support." The comment section exploded. Karen's name was all over it. Mike stayed silent. At first. But then something shifted. A former Marine doesn't forget what it means to fight for what's right. This time, the battlefield was his own front lawn. Mike started small. He pulled HOA records, requested meeting transcripts, and went over complaint filings from the past 2 years. What he found made his jaw tighten. Over 30 formal complaints filed by Karen. Many were worded ambiguously, citing vague aesthetics violations. Most of the targets, elderly neighbors, single parents, new residents. People unlikely to fight back. But Mike wasn't alone for long. When he reached out to his neighbors, the floodgates opened. One woman had been fined for letting her kid use sidewalk chalk. Another man had his holiday lights forcibly removed for being off-brand. A retired librarian had been cited for excessive wind chimes. People were angry. They just didn't think anyone else would care. Until now, Mike compiled everything into a 30-page dossier. But he didn't stop there. He started an online campaign, half protest, half performance art. He posted side-by-side photos, one of Karen's spotless lawn, another of Rufus rolling in a patch of dandelions. The caption, "Which one brings more joy?" He created the hashtag #Justice for Rufus. Within days, it went viral across the county. Support poured in. Memes exploded. Someone printed stickers of Rufus in sunglasses. Local college students camped in front of Karen's house holding signs that read, "Let the beagle be." Vegans showed up and threw tofu eggs at her windows every morning like it was clockwork. Karen tried to fight back. She released an HOA memo accusing Mike of inciting domestic unrest. She called the local paper to complain about an animal-centric cult forming outside her home. But the harder she pushed, the more the community resisted. Then came the HOA meeting. The room was packed, standing room only. Mike arrived with Rufus on a red leash and a small group of supporters in tow. Karen stood at the front, wearing a lavender pantsuit. Flanked by the remaining board members, she tried to launch into her prepared remarks. But someone in the crowd shouted, "Let the beagle speak." The room broke into laughter. Karen tried to regain control, her voice brittle and high. She accused Mike of cyberbullying. She called the protesters radicalized pet owners. But when she claimed that she was protecting Cedar Hollow from canine obesity, the crowd turned. One by one, residents stood up. A father whose daughter cried when her chalk drawings were washed away. An elderly woman who'd been fined for planting marigolds. A teenager who said Rufus was the only dog in the neighborhood who stopped to let him pet him. Karen lost her grip in real time. She interrupted speakers, rolled her eyes. Then, in a final grasp for control, she screamed, "This is why communities fall apart. You let feelings take over order." Silence followed. The board called a vote. The motion passed. Karen's position as president was revoked effective immediately. She stormed out without a word. Over the next few weeks, Cedar Hollow changed. The HOA opened up their meetings. Rules were reviewed. Vague language removed. Mike was invited to join a new community task force focused on transparency. He declined politely, said he preferred to stick to gardening and grading science quizzes. Karen's house went up for sale quietly. No open house. No goodbye, just a listing that read motivated seller and a price cut within days. Mike never gloated. He didn't need to. Justice had come, not through shouting, but through unity. One afternoon, a neighborhood kid knocked on Mike's door, handed him a small wooden sign, carefully painted in glittery blue. Neighborhood Emotional Support MVP Rufus the Beagle. Mike smiled. He stuck it in the front yard, right next to the mint. As the sun dipped behind the trees, Mike sat on the porch with Rufus, snoring softly at his feet. Neighbors waved. Someone honked. The tension that had gripped Cedar Hollow, like a vice, was gone, and it all started with a dog that didn't fit the mold. The real victory wasn't Karen's resignation or the tofu eggs. It was the community waking up, standing together, choosing compassion over conformity. Because sometimes, it doesn't take a revolution to change the world, just one good dog, and someone willing to fight for him.